citizens of YouTube Live.
Hey.
It's your president and your VP. And happy Easter. I know that we're recording this actually early, but for those of you who believe in it, happy Easter. And as a result, this is our Easter special.
Yep.
It's also a tribute to Val Kilmer. So when you combine Easter plus Val Kilmer, there's only one movie that comes to mind, and that is The Prince of Egypt. So The Prince of Egypt is a 1998 animated film that was directed by Brenda Chapman, Steve Hickner, and Simon Wells, based off of the biblical book of Exodus.
Yep.
Now, first thing is that they put a little disclaimer at the beginning of the film. So if you happen to be not of Christian persuasion or of the Jewish faith, they put out a little statement for you guys out there that this is a story that can actually be interpreted and be used by faiths of all walks of life. So with that being said, it premiered December 18th, 1998 in the United States. And it was made for a budget of $60 to $70 million and had a box office of $218.6 million. And this was the very first DreamWorks movie.
Yeah, so basically it went Prince of Egypt, and then literally a month after Prince of Egypt, then it went to Ants. So, yeah. With Val Kilmer doing Moses.
Starring Val Kilmer as Moses and Ralph Fiennes voicing Ramses. Those are your two most important voice actors in the film because
they pretty much carry the film.
It is a story of brother versus brother.
Mm-hmm.
A story of as old as time, and there are several other voice talents. We have Michelle Pfeiffer voicing Zipporah, who becomes Moses' wife in the film.
Mm-hmm.
We've also got Jeff Goldblum as Aaron, and I didn't even recognize that.
I knew it was Jeff Goldblum.
Well, I wasn't paying attention. I guess I should have because of the Jeff Goldblum inflections and mannerisms in his talking.
I only knew that because of the Nostalgia Critic review that Jeff Goldblum was Aaron.
And funny enough, Danny Glover as Jethro. So
nice.
Star-studded cast.
Yeah, it's Sandra Bullock as Miriam as well.
So let's get right on into it then, shall we? So the movie begins. If you guys kind of know the story of Exodus, then you pretty much already know where this movie's going and where it begins. And it basically begins with, well, the Pharaoh at the time deciding that the Israelites are too populated.
Yeah.
So he's going to decide to make sure that all of the newborn male babies sleep with the fishes.
Not just the male newborns. It's
literally
all the newborns.
Sleeping with the fishes in this case because they are essentially going to
toss them into the
Nile.
And they'll become crocodile food.
And they'll be sleeping with the fishes. So, but one Israelite family goes against the norm and the grain and decides, via a very horrible plan, might I add you. There were so many factors that could have went wrong with this plan. But essentially, their plan is to take this little newborn baby boy.
That's Moses, by the way. I don't know if you knew that or not.
Yeah, it is. But they're going to take this newborn baby and put it in a basket and just let it float down the Nile and see what happens. I guess that's a better fate than what was on the other end, but there were so many factors.
Yeah.
So, baby floats down the river, and then Pharaoh's daughter happens to come across the basket and is like, oh.
Not Pharaoh's daughter.
No,
Pharaoh's
it's
wife.
actually Pharaoh's daughter. Okay. In the real story, they may have changed this up a bit, but in the real story, it's Pharaoh's daughter who actually finds him.
Yeah.
So, but in the movie, it's Pharaoh's wife, who, by the way, guys, is also his sister.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's Egyptian. It's royal bloodlines. But I have to throw that out there because
yeah,
it is.
We should mention that the story then flash forwards to about 20 years later, and Moses and Ramesses are pretty much, young men doing young men things.
Yeah, they're thick as thieves. They're kind of harassing the locals. They're playing pranks. Meanwhile, Ramses' father is like, Ramses, you better shape the F up because you're about to become the Pharaoh.
Yeah.
And you can't be doing all of this BS.
Which, by the way, Pharaoh, which I think they call him Setep, right? Seti. Yeah, that's his name. Pharaoh Seti is voiced by Patrick Stewart.
Yeah.
And honestly, I did not know Patrick Stewart could be menacing. But when you listen to him do the voice lines for Seti in this, it's, you're just like, oh.
So Moses and Ramses are screwing around when, lo and behold, they kind of come across a group of Israelites, and the first person he happens to meet is his sister, who's like, yo, Moses, what's up? Ain't seen you in a while. And Moses is like, who are you?
No, that isn't until later on in the movie. First and foremost, Pharaoh or Ramesses becomes I forgot what it is like chief architect or
yeah, like chief builder.
Yeah,
the
most temples,
the most important builder.
Yeah, it's something like that.
Yeah.
And then he makes Moses like the royal architect or something like that, or something to that nature, right? And gives him like this emerald ring. And Moses then meets his future wife, but she's kind of not happy to be there because
she got captured.
She's technically a slave.
Yep.
Yeah. So Moses is kind of just like enamored with her and kind of like follows her to the edge of the kingdom, pretty much, right? And then he meets his real sister and brother.
And like I said, that's when she's like, yo, Moses, what's up? Ain't seen you in a while.
And Moses is like, what do you mean? And she's like, you don't recognize us?
And so...
And then he's like, you will not speak to a prince of Egypt like that, and kind of like slaps her to the ground, And then she sings a melody that her mother sang to him when he was younger.
That he was humming earlier in the movie.
Yeah, there's a callback to that from earlier in the movie where he's humming to it and when he pranks the high priests of Egypt.
Yeah, so that kind of like triggers something in his brain, right? So he has this really imaginative and descriptive dream sequence about...
That's given to him by God.
Yeah.
Let's not mince words about it. It's actually God that gives it to him.
He gets this dream, and he sees what's happening, and so then he confronts his father about it, and his father's like, what was the big deal about it? They're just slaves. It didn't matter what happened to them.
And then he kind of then starts feeling bad about it, about everything that's happening. And then there's this one old man that's getting whipped. There's no other way to really describe it.
Yeah, he sees what happens.
And then he's telling the guy to stop it and stuff. And Moses accidentally, makes a man sleep with the fishes.
Which, of course, via Egyptian law in the first place. And they bring this up later that why would it matter what Moses done in the first place? He's like royal blood and whatnot. In them days, they just basically get away with whatever they wanted. So
it's because it would eat away at Moses' conscience too much. And so he kind of runs away from the Egyptian kingdom and goes into Midian instead.
Mm-hmm.
And we get some really cool callbacks to a little-known movie called Lawrence of Arabia. That's where... Editor Jason here. I would like to say that this next clip you're about to see is actually from Uncharted 3 and not the Prince of Egypt. mostly because we don't want to get a copyright claim, and you can't copyright claim video game clips, so suck on that, DreamWorks. A lot of the scenes that you're seeing, there's a lot of scenes that you see right here, mind you. That's what a lot of that is a reference to, is Lawrence of Arabia. And also, I didn't know this, but I recently just played through Uncharted 3, and it's in chapter 18, I think, when Nathan is roaming through the desert, that that is a callback and reference to the Prince of Egypt. I'm like, that's super cool. So I'll also put that on the screen right about now.
So we probably should talk a little bit about some of the songs. One that I really wanted to point out that is simply a banger. When you hear it in the movie, it's going to be stuck in your head for days and days afterwards. And that's the one where he's questioning about everything that's happened. And he's like, all I've ever wanted, I have. But then God brings in and all this and just dumps it on top of one man. And he's like, here you go. Now I expect you to do this. And so with that, though, he's been living his life in Midian for like 30, 40 years.
It's 40 years in the actual story of Exodus. So I assume it's 40 years as well in the movie.
So he's been living his life, his best life. He's been raising his family with his wife and whatnot.
Yeah.
He's tending his sheep when, lo and behold,
one sheep kind of like goes out of its way.
So he goes looking for it. And suddenly comes across a burning bush.
Yeah, you notice this strange glow in a cave, right? So he goes into the cave, and there's this burning bush. And now we're getting into the story of the burning bush.
And God just straight up tells them, he's like, I've heard my people and whatnot, and I want you to go tell Moses, or go tell Pharaoh, hey, let him go. It's time for them to leave and get on out of here.
Yeah.
So he decides he's going to go on up, and he's like, he walks on up, and he greets Pharaoh, and Ramses is now Pharaoh, and Ramses, again, another thing, Ramses like, yo, Moses, where you been? I've been waiting for you, man. We can just resume. We can pick up right where we left off. Everything's going to be great and the same.
Yeah.
But then Moses is like, actually, I'm here to tell you that you got to let them go. You got to let them get on out of here, and I'm going to take them, and we're just going to leave. And Ramses is like, why would I do that? They're my slaves. I'm going to keep them. So he's like, I will show you God's power. And so he strikes the staff. The staff turns into the cobra, right?
Yeah.
But Ramses is like, please, my magician's over here. They can do this. Watch.
Yeah.
Magician cheats in the movie, mind you. But
they then go into a really catchy song that I really like.
Yeah.
Called Playing with the Big Boys Now.
You're playing with the big boys now. Playing with the big boys now. Oh, that's pretty.
Yeah.
It's really catchy, and it'll get stuck in your head a lot.
That too.
In fact, it's been like a week since we've watched this movie, and it's still stuck in my head.
So he goes through that, and he's like, yep, I'm not letting them go. So Pharaoh's chilling on the Nile like the next day. He's living his best life. When he looks over, sees Moses again. Yo, let my people go. Ramses, not going to happen. Okay, strike the Nile. Nile turns to blood. So magicians, do something about this. So they cheat, use some food coloring.
Yeah, they pretty much use some food coloring, and they're like, wow. And mind you, it's really cool in the movie too that the food colored water isn't the same color of red as the blood Nile, as I'm going to call it from now on here in the review.
Yeah. So.
That's something that's really cool. That is.
Then we start to get the.
I was talking.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so it's just little details like those that you got to pay attention throughout the movie, where it's like, yeah, those things like the food coloring water not being the same color red as blood Nile. And it's just really cool little details, like
Yeah.
you just can't really go wrong with it either.
And so, with all that, you get the plagues, you get the locusts,
Yeah,
you get the flies, you get the boils.
You get the
crime.
Like song, which is also another catchy song.
And so, after all that, though, Pharaoh still won't let them go. So, in a last-ditch recourse effort, we get some Final Destination, just straight out of Final Destination, because he has a chance, right? But the angel comes in and sweeps across the entire land. Now, one thing is that
the angel
apparently cannot distinguish Egyptian from Israelite, so they have to. This is from the story. I don't know that they necessarily did this in the book and in the movie, but
they did. Moses tells them slaughter a lamb and then put the blood across your door. And that will tell you. That will let the angel know that you're Israelite.
Can't tell the difference.
Yeah, so that'll let the angel know that you are an Israelite and not to.
So that happens, and the next day Moses goes, "It didn't have to be this way," and Ramses just says, "Take your people and go," but changes his mind rather quickly and decides he's going to go after them. Keep going.
Yep.
Away. First ladies who are calling.
So Moses, they then reach I think it's the Red Sea, and if I remember correctly, I'm sorry. So anyways, they reach the Red Sea. They reach
that part out.
No, I'm keeping that in. That's too funny.
All right, I'm back after having a little argument.
So Moses reaches the Red Sea, and he takes a staff, and he puts it down into the Red Sea, and then a beautiful scene of CGI, by the way, because they could only achieve this in CGI. And it's one of the only times that the film really uses CG, except for a couple other times, but it's not really as noticeable as it is here. And then Ramesses is just like, actually, no, we're going to go after the Israelites. And then God's like, no, you're not. And then brings down a fire tornado to block the path. And then as they're like running into the Red Sea, God's like, that's good enough for me. They're halfway there. And then just lets up the fire tornado. And then
so they're halfway across.
I'm sorry.
And then the Egyptians, led by Pharaoh, they see the wall of water on both sides, right? And they just decide, we're going to go after them. As soon as the Israelites get to the other side, though, God's like, yeah, okay, time to let the walls rain in on them. And that's exactly what happens.
Yeah.
And so all of the Pharaoh and the Egyptians sleep with the fishes.
No,
Pharaoh literally.
Pharaoh is actually got put back onto the Egypt side. And so now the Israelites are in, what is it, the Sinai Peninsula now? If we're going in
it depends on the geography. Some would have said that it would have been the Sinai. Some would have said it would have been just south toward would have
the Arabian Peninsula.
More on the Arabian Peninsula.
So they're somewhere around that region of the world, guys, but, like the Sinai Peninsula or the Arabian Peninsula.
Anyways, guys, that was how the movie ended with the Israelites getting their freedom.
And then Moses comes down with the 10 Commandments, but they leave out the part where they worship the golden calf.
They also leave out the part where he gets mad and frustrated and strikes the tablets. But that's neither here nor there. So,
or how they were then forced to roam the desert for 40 years.
Again, that's neither here nor there. We're talking about this particular story.
Yeah.
And so that story was wrapped up, finito, the end, done.
Yeah.
So guys, the voice acting alone is tremendous. And the talents. Oh, forgot to mention that Val Kilmer not only was the voice of Moses, but he was also the voice of God in the movie as well. So, yeah, guys, from the voice acting to the imagery to the soundtrack, you just cannot go wrong with this movie, especially around Easter time. It is pretty much these days, like, you have certain specials that you watch and certain things that you watch on certain holidays. Well, this is almost, for most people anyways, a required viewing experience around this time. And not only, it's also a testament to Val Kilmer's voice acting ability, that he was able to pull off both roles. And like we said, this is just a phenomenal children's movie in the first place. So,
but there are some parts of the movie that I would say parents screen this ahead of time, as this movie is rated PG for parental guidance, and a lot of the stuff that we did say in the movie could be not really suitable for like a 5-year-old. So
yeah, definitely, it does have a little bit of a darker edge to it around it, but it is most definitely something that you shouldn't have any problems after. You might have to, but on the same hand, the directing of the movie was phenomenal, and it's just a top tier film, and it's no wonder that it did so well at the box office. And forgot to throw this out there at the beginning, but it does have an approval rating of 80% on Rotten Tomatoes. So take that for what it's worth.
It's probably even higher. It's probably even higher with the audience as well.
So, like we said, it's definitely a really good movie, and it was definitely probably the best first movie that DreamWorks could have done at the time. So with all that being said, final rating, I give it a 5 out of 5. What say you?
I also have to give it nothing but a 5 out of 5.
It is, quite frankly, almost a perfect animated film. So with that being said, guys,
I know a few others that could possibly be better.
So with that being said, guys, if you have seen the Prince of Persia,
The Prince of Egypt, and you think it is the worst animated film of all time, then let me remind you that Sausage Party exists.
This is true. But hey, also, if you happen to have seen The Prince of Egypt and you think it's the worst, and you think we're just a couple of idiots who don't know what the heck you're talking about, well, just remember that we are, in fact, just two idiots with a webcam. Our opinions do not matter, except they actually do, because we have a YouTube show, except they actually don't. So with that being said, there's only one thing left for us to say in this review, and that, of course, is
peace and love from Danny and Son. Bye.